often preaching to the choir. I can't see you, but I'm trusting I'm still preaching to the choir. Those of us who do very much air traveling these days know that air travel is not nearly as much fun or as relaxing as it used to be. One thing is you have to pack incredibly carefully so that you don't have too large a tube of toothpaste so they don't confiscate it when you go through the first check-in line. Plus you walk through really long lines and wait for a really long time to get through security and get your bags through security. And when you finally get to the last checkpoint, you have to take off nearly everything you're wearing in order to clear that last gate. So it's not real surprising, I think, that a lot of people are really cranky when they travel these days. About a year ago, I was on my way to Cleveland for a national meeting, and I was going through the airport in Denver, and the lines had just gone on forever, and it was like, can't you read the signs? People haven't taken off their jackets, they still have their shoes on. People are still saying they're even in their underwear, and they want them to take off another layer. And everybody's getting pretty crabby, and finally we get out onto the little thing, the walkway that takes you actually out to the airplane. And everything comes to a stop, and we're all just standing there. And the longer we stood there, the more you could hear people grousing about, why is it taking so long? I don't understand why this line doesn't move. And finally, when we got onto the plane and started down the aisle of the plane, we could see what the holdup was. And the holdup was the fact that about 2/3 of the way back, there was a young man wearing a Marine uniform with his Marine name tag, and as each person went by him, they stopped to shake his hand. Every time I see that, and I see it a lot when I travel, I am so touched. I am partly touched by how incredibly young these men and women look. To me, they don't look a whole lot older than our kids here, our Bobby and our Caitlin and all those kids. And they don't look a whole lot older than my own great nieces and nephews who are still running around playing on their bicycles and coloring books. They look way too young to have seen the things that so many of them have already seen, and to have lost the things that so many of them have already lost, and they look way too young to be risking their lives every single day. And I'm touched when I hear them talking to other people about their military service. This young man on the plane to Cleveland was on his way home to see his mom and dad and his family, and his seatmate was saying, why are you in the Marines? He was a college graduate, could have gotten a better job, all this other kind of stuff. And he was talking about how hopeful and confident he was that his service could make a difference in the world. And I'm also touched when I feel the energy of their integrity and bravery. They're scared. Anybody in their right mind who walks onto a battlefield is scared, and they do it anyway for what they see and understand to be a greater good than themselves. Today, as we celebrate our Veteran Sunday service, we may be thinking about some of the young men and young women in our own lives. Maybe some of them are kids. Maybe some of them are grandkids, or their spouses, or friends, or other young people. We may be remembering some people no longer chronologically young who have served, people who have been our husbands or wives, our sisters, our brothers, again, our children, our beloved comrades and friends. Some of them are sitting here with us today. We're going to honor you in a few minutes. Some of them are over at the VA at the ends of their lives. Some of them are lying underneath military headstones. And some of them never made it back at all. And as we remember them, we remember how young they were. And we remember their hope and their confidence in serving and trying to make the world a better place. And so today we celebrate their lives, every one of them, and we celebrate those qualities of spirit that we admire in them, and we thank our God for endowing them with those qualities of spirit, of bravery, of courage of all kinds, of integrity and honor and selflessness to serve others, doing what they could to try to bring safety and peace into a broken world, to try to bring freedoms to communities that do not and did not enjoy those freedoms. And we celebrate them in a worship setting because whether or not those vets were consciously acting out of a faith perspective, whether or not they were Christian or some other tradition or no faith tradition at all, we come together as people who value Jesus' teachings, and one of the things that he teaches is the importance of love for others, love of neighbor, justice-seeking, freedom-bringing, and not just love of country, but love of fellow human beings, whether we know them personally and they live next door or they live halfway across the world. Now, some people really struggle with having a Veterans Day service in a church because for some people, all those values that are so important in the military seem kind of antithetical to the values of peace, peacemaking and justice-making that we talk about in church all the time. As they go, how can you celebrate this in a church? And this week, as I was preparing this sermon, I knew there were folk here who were going to struggle with that. And I was reading a book called A Seeker's ABC, which is by Frederick Buechner. He's one of my favorite theologians. And he offers a definition and a little essay on peace that I found immensely helpful. He says for most of us, when we think about peace, that word peace has come to mean a time when there are no more wars in the world, no more violence, no more of that stuff going on. Everybody is at peace and safe. And he says, but you know, when you listen to what Jesus has to say about peace, he really doesn't define it that way. And in fact, a lot of what Jesus has to say about peace seems radically contradictory. On the one hand, as he's leaving his followers in John's gospel, he says, my peace I give to you. My peace I offer you. I don't give as the world gives. You're going to be okay. The kind of peace a lot of us think about. Peace of soul and peace of spirit and hopefully peace of living. And on the other hand, when he's talking to his disciples, and we hear about him in Matthew's gospel, he says, I don't come to bring peace. I come to bring a sword.